Long ago, after the great flood in Noah's time, the world was starting fresh. People were spreading across the earth, building families, forming communities, and learning how to live together again. At that time, everyone spoke the same language. They understood one another perfectly, and because of this, working together was easy. Communication was clear, and cooperation came naturally. As the people moved east, they settled on a wide plain called Shinar. It was a good place to live, with open land and room to grow. One day, the people came together and said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." Instead of using stones, they used bricks and tar, showing how skilled and creative they had become. Then they made an even bigger plan. They said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves so that we will not be scattered over the face of the whole earth." They wanted to be remembered. They wanted security, power, and success on their own terms. They believed that together they could reach heaven without needing God. But this desire came from pride. God had already told humanity to spread out and fill the earth, yet the people chose to stay in one place. They trusted their own strength instead of God's direction. The Bible says that God came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. God saw their unity, but he also saw their pride. He saw how powerful they had become and how their hearts were turning away from him. God said that if they continued like this, nothing they planned would be impossible for them, and that power without humility would only lead them further from him. So God decided to act, not to destroy the people, but to guide them back to his purpose. God confused their language so they could no longer understand one another. Suddenly, the clear communication they once had was gone. Builders could not understand instructions. Workers argued instead of cooperating. Confusion replaced unity, and the work came to a halt. The tower was never completed. The city was abandoned. As people struggled to communicate, they began to move away from one another, spreading across the earth. In this way, God's original plan was fulfilled. The place was called Babel, a name that sounds like the word for confusion, because it was there that God confused the language of the whole world. From that moment on, different languages, cultures, and nations began to develop. The unfinished tower stood as a reminder that human pride cannot replace God's guidance. The story of the Tower of Babel is more than a story about a tall building. It is a story about the human heart. It teaches us that unity without humility can become dangerous, and that success without God often leads to confusion. When people try to build their lives only for their own glory, even their greatest efforts can fall apart. This story reminds us to reflect on our own lives and ask an important question. Are we building to make a name for ourselves, or are we building in alignment with God's purpose? True greatness does not come from reaching heaven by our own strength, but from walking humbly with God and trusting his direction.